Let's go over the week currently gone. We can basically jump in straight away. I'm not going to bother rewinding price. But basically, EU to start off the week, major inducement in a bullish range. And if you look on the 4 hour, clearly bullish. Um, Clear inducement, not really much to work with. We're just kind of working between this range, and then we're trying to predict and kind of see where price is going. Straight down to the 15 minute, and we can kind of start working in this range here. So a big indication, but necessarily this wasn't going to hold because what day did we come in? We came in this day here. So we obviously broke through this high and then returned straight to supply to demand. This supply held weight. This supply held weight. So we had a really, really good medium inducement into mitigation and then kind of pushed out from there. Now, in terms of entries, I don't believe there was anything. So let's have a little look-see. So simple, just structure cycle. No need to look for sells here. If we are going to sell, it's going to be something like this to then sell. It's got to build liquidity up. So that's what we're waiting for. But more than like less, what we actually got was that really, really good break and retest entry. So draw a straight line across here, break, retest, that then pushed, and then basically the confirmations for that. This came out of session, so nothing inside of session. There was nothing in here. This was the last demand, supply to demand, break, retest, and then push. We then had build up, so we've got break, retest with momentum, with 15-minute momentum into a weak point. You've then got build up. So now you're looking for an entry. So how I read this, inducement here, and then we're looking for a second inducement, which I don't believe we get. So realistically, if we were reading internally here, we've got inducement, smart money trap, high, high, pull down, inducement, push. The limit would be that. No tag. This was out of session, like I said, but this is the entry. Inducement one, inducement two, build up. Confirm smart money trap by inducing low and pushing really high and breaking internally. Our, because that's the break there. Our invalidation is the take of this high. You've also got that build up here. So when you get that second inducement, you'll also build a trend line as well. So we'll have trend line, momentum, break and retest, ship. Um, and then from there, that's the entry there. So this is a very, very, very textbook entry and something to get your head around. Obviously, this one didn't tap in and it was out of session. Until you get something like this, there's nothing to work with in here. Absolutely nothing. So you've just got to define what structure is for you to then read. So over time, your eyes will kind of just adjust to this. We've got break, clear retest, clear push. There's nothing to work with in here. We've got no inducement in here. If anything, we're actually getting bearish structure down. Okay, so we've got inducement into a mitigation. You've then got a two leg that takes liquidity here into a break, return to supply. We're getting bearish structure. Okay, where's the trend line building up? Trend line's building up to the downside. Obviously, that's the inducement, and now we're trading into that trend line. So complex pullback, impulse. Complex pullback, impulse. Okay, momentum over and over again.
With that entry, Brad,
Yeah.
we always set the limit on the break, like the internal break, as in, so not you would never set it like on the internal break of the two leg.
No. So what I'm basically looking for is this is just a reversal schematic of what happens. So you get inducement, push, two leg inducement. After you get your second inducement, we're just mitigating this area of demand and pushing. That is how
Oh
it
yeah,
works over and over again. And you'll see that on every entry for this week. Every single entry works with this. So that's just the reversal pattern. So the two confirmations we normally trade off of, you would get, obviously there's no internal break. So this is why this works so well here. But the inducement, you would then get the second confirmation. What we would normally enter on is the second confirmation, which is the second inducement. which is why you get that and you can go break even and cover this low. That's why that normally works. So all this is just reading the next part of structure to minimize your stop loss, minimize your entry, and then you can read structure without a break of structure.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Cool.
So things that are required, inducement, momentum, two types of inducements. Now, when I say the word inducement, every person out there that teaches on YouTube, has courses, whatever else, they treat an inducement as the take of liquidity. Yes, it is, but the more important part of an inducement, and this is what no one tells you, is the build-up of liquidity. Okay? That is the more important part. And that's why people make money off of people selling courses, is because they hype so much on the take of liquidity.
That's why I like the two legs good, hey Brad, like because
Yes.
that's just inducing sellers in,
Hmm.
hence the inducement. It doesn't like necessarily have to, like take a low, take the liquidity from the low,
Yes. Yes.
and then
Exactly
you can
right.
buy through these sellers who've got in off the two leg,
Hmm.
or are getting in as price moves up because they think that two leg is new structure.
Yes. I mean, this works on every time frame. So you've got
But yeah,
one, two, like it works on every time frame.
yeah.
When you understand that two legs are an inducement and a new protected
I've
structure.
felt this week like I started to sort of see manipulation a little bit clearer,
Hmm.
like a little bit more confidently, like in terms of like two legs and things like that, like understanding that, oh, that's likely to get pushed through, which is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. No, beautiful. No, spot on. Once you've got momentum and structure cycle down, this part is easy. But you've just got to apply this over and over again. It is reading internal structure. You've got to decide whether you're going to read confirmations, enter, or read price. Me, I want to read price, which is why all of my entries now, the stop loss is smaller, break even's quicker, and you're able to basically manage positions a whole lot better because you're trading inducements, which is why price moves. Okay. So that entry was valid, and then you would obviously target the external high. No, no entry. Like an entry is valid, no tag, and obviously it's out of session. So I'm not going to count that one, but it is valid. Okay, cool. Remove all these fucking drawings. All right, so this is where I will play price. I took a loss. Now this is valid, but given the structure cycle, where we're coming from, GU gave an entry. GU was better. Okay, like I said, I took a loss here. All my entry was medium inducement. I then had an internal break that took liquidity, that then pushed, that then gave me a two leg into a break, and I set the idea of break and retest that entry here. Okay, given the current momentum, so this sat here for like, I don't know, 30 minutes. So I was in my stop loss for 30 minutes. So what that tells me is this is an area of 50-50. Like this was either going to do this or it was going to do this. Yep, not beautiful. There is don't just in this you just can't cover the two leg because we didn't break external structure. The internal structure now actually holds more weight. This isn't. So all I'm looking for is two leg, beautiful, into a mitigation. This isn't in a supply until it takes this low. The moment it doesn't take this low, this is now a smart money trap because what it's trapping in is early sellers to use this as the break and retest. So when that happens, it's actually using this as the break and retest internally. So it's creating that type of structure. So that's why you have that two leg that doesn't break external. So I was happy to set that. Yes, once you kind of understand that manipulation. So if this had broken the low, I would have expected this. And that's just simple structure. There's nothing that can push this up higher than that, etc., etc. But this was an aggressive entry given current momentum. This was the opposite end of the structure cycle. But I think this is valid, which is why it sat in my stop loss for literally like 30 minutes, trying to decide which way it's going to go. It was a point of indecision, which held risk. So in future, given the current market conditions, half risk this, or wait for that next break and then enter off the new point here because you can always wait longer. Okay. But don't hate it. Think it's valid. It's just the buy is more valid. In terms of buying this, I don't like going against the medium inducement anyway. You have got a very, very, very small inducement of supply to demand. So two leg point of inducement. You then created a two leg that was induced. So you've got inducement, inducement, push and break, and on the break here, same entry as before. Okay, exact same entry. Funnily enough, trend line, trend line. Okay, so that's all you've got to look at there is where is the liquidity, where's momentum, and that's the entry. So that was a shit entry. That was the valid entry, which you then take either to the external high or you take to that supply here. So this was the entry I should have taken for a 1 to 7. Okay, A plus entry. Just read the market incorrect. Not too salty about it, given that it did come from a medium inducement. Okay, so um, either way is correct in my eyes. You either just take the loss and go with momentum against momentum, or you take the win and go with momentum. But the buy was a valid buy. Does the buy make sense to everybody? I think it's pretty clean and understanding. You've just got to kind of look at, and this is something I've journaled. I took a very very small supply to demand that broke through that high that did have break and retest. You then have a complex pullback. I then have trend line building up inside this, and the entry itself built up trend line. Like I said, is key in understanding that reversal. Where is the trend line? Where is the trend line? Yes, and GU induced at the same time, which I'll explain when we get to it. It did the exact same thing, which is where the buy was actually really, really clean as well. So A plus buy, B sell should have just taken the buy, expecting to make a new higher high. Okay, keeping it simple is always the way to go. So for this, realistically, if I was in this, I would be targeting that supply as a minimum, which takes you to a 1 to 3. So I would take that 1 to 3. Okay. Given the structure cycle, it's always worth to hold a 201 to 10. So this is one that's actually worth 1 to 3, 50%, 1 to 10, take the highs. Okay. Very valid one. Okay. Coming into next day. So everyone, I reckon everybody read this incorrectly. So this is another A plus entry. Okay. We're obviously bullish. From this supply, we have made no structure. Okay. 15-minute push, 15-minute push up, pull down. Okay. So this is just a 15-minute two leg. That is all it is. For this to be a valid selling area for me, I then need to induce a high to push down. I need a two leg that has an inducement of 15-minute structure in order to start selling. We do not have that. Okay. Another confirmation on this is you've got a 15-minute low outside of Asia, which we know is a type of entry. Okay. And all this is, so London opens in the middle of nowhere. Just shouldn't try and trade London. Like this is just in the middle of Asian session. You don't know if this supply is going to hold because that we've had one leg down. We don't even have a second leg. You have nothing to target. And then obviously the push up just going to create a trap. You've got Asian low buyers in it. You've got London session buyers in it. You've then got everyone setting limits as is breaks. There's just all liquidity in here. So you're waiting for the liquidity take to then move and go from there. So this entry is actually very, very clean. So if you haven't watched the case study, watch it. You've got inducement, push up, mitigation, push up. There's your two leg that gives you a little take of liquidity into the mitigation of this supply, of this demand, like that. Okay. Bullish structure. There's my second inducement. We then had a take of a high. So now we can't trade. We can't do anything. There is nothing we can do. I tried to get in this before it broke. Nothing we can do. This is a supply that broke through the low. We've now taken external structure. This is a demand. This is a demand. We've got structure cycle. Okay. We then had break, retest, and push into equal highs. I've got trading away from an inducement. I've got trend line build up. All I'm looking for is my next inducement. Inducement, push up. This is now my inducement area. I've created structure in between a demand, so I need to know if it holds. I set the limit straight off of that because this is just simple medium inducement, two confirmations, set a trade. I've then got trading away from inducements, I've got momentum, and at the same time, GU actually created a divergence. Okay. If you don't take that, that is fine. Risk appetite, I was happy to take. The next entry is worth it. Second inducement. So I've got first inducement, protected low. Second inducement. Is this a smart money trap? Well, let's find out. Push, pull down, pull up, pull down, push up, take of liquidity, break, set limit. Where you set it does not matter. You can take the last valid point. You can cover the lows if you're worried. Let's say you cover the lows, that's fine. So all we're looking for now is a second inducement. So we're repeating this cycle again here. Inducement, inducement. So there's my second inducement. 1 to 3. Smashed. So either way you take this, risk entry, confirmation entry covering your ass, break even at the take of this liquidity, because that's the next external take of liquidity, follow through.
With that second entry,
Yeah.
is it valid to set it just off like the two leg
Yep.
after that take of retest?
Yep. 110%.
As in like
Just pull
so
up,
before
pull
you
down,
get
push up. Yeah.
yes, yeah, yeah.
Yep. Spot
Because
on.
that's what I had as I went through price
Yeah.
earlier. That's valid. Yeah.
110%. All you're doing is you're looking for a reason that this inducement holds.
Yeah.
For me, I don't want to trade the confirmation past that because I'm combining two. So for me, I just look for an inducement and a quick reaction. Inducement, quick reaction. I now am covered by an inducement in this range. I have one inducement, two inducement. If it's going to pull down and push up, I can go break even or move my stop. So I can reduce risk immediately.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, makes sense?
Yeah. So with that, if I had just set it off like the two leg after that, take a retest,
Yeah.
is it valid to have you stop at that inducement, or would I have to have you stop like lower because I'm not protected by an inducement in that
So
range?
this is where patience pays. Okay, so the reason I
Yeah.
read structure like this, and I have been for about, I think, 2.5 months rather than just the two confirmations, is because my stop loss size average was too large. I was
Mhm.
finding I was running 1 to 2.5 and then it was returning and it was pissing me off. So I need to be aggressive and I need to reach price action. So reading inducements, at least you can move your stop and create odds. You can
Have
just
a
put the
much
odds in your
tighter.
favor.
Yeah.
Yes. And
And so they're going to move 10 pips to get a 1 to 3 rather than
yes,
25 or whatever.
exactly right. So all you're looking, and however you read this, is yes, you can trade the two leg. That is fine. You've just got to understand the two leg in itself is a form of liquidity. So what you're looking for is yes, two leg, but you've got to understand you're now trading between two inducements. Okay.
Yeah.
All you're looking for is for this two leg to show that it's holding more than a two leg. Now that can be break and retest and then set that because now you've got an inducement inside your two leg.
Yeah.
That is fine. You've now got a protection of some type of minor inducement. So you can set that.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. Or what you can do is wait for the proof of a smart money trap. And that's just a quick
Right.
inducement, quick push up. Yep, cool. I'm covered by the two leg, I'm covered
You
by
could. Yeah.
inducement, divergence. I've got equal high targets, I've got build up targets. And that's how I kind of treat it. Okay. Either
Okay.
or is
Cool.
correct. I would suggest reading the inducements because once you get in flow with it, and I'll show you the GU trade, I traded news and took three break evens in a row and still was able to take trades.
Yeah.
Once you trade the inducements, you can run amok.
Yeah. Cool.
And this is how Wakar and Alec, this is how they trade it. They
Yeah.
just don't fucking teach it. This is
Yeah.
how they trade it.
This is
You
how
know,
they
but
trade. They just kind of teach something else. Yeah.
yes, yeah, the it's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like it's no coincidence that I call all the same trades as Alex this week, and I've traded this way.
Yeah.
So
No, sweet.
all inducements, understanding how to get price in, and it's all off the back of two legs or medium inducements, then trading a second inducement, which can be a break of structure into a two leg, no break of
Yeah.
structure, two leg, smart money trap reaction, things like that. Okay, so
Cool.
I think if everyone in the group should have taken a buy limit here, should have taken a buy. It's worth, you've got multiple areas to help yourself. Even if you were to take Let's say it pushes up, you take the two leg here and you cover this low, 12 pip stop loss. It's still worth the fucking risk. You still hit 1 to 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Momentum, structure cycle, volatility timing, inducements, build up of liquidity, very, very good break even protocol. If you're not taking a trade because you think it's not going to hit 1 to 3, that's not the point of the trading part. You're meant to get to a point where you can throw risk in the market and cover your ass. That is the entire reason of trading. We're here to make money. So if there's a
Yeah.
chance that you can hit 1 to 3, you just fucking take it. Break even
Mm.
does nothing to your account. Absolutely nothing. Okay. Beautiful. So both of these fucking A plus. My entry definitely a lot riskier. I completely understand it. Fucking risky for sure. But the divergence on GU helped this. I was happy to take it. In fact, I actually tried and I set a limit off of this. Once it pushed up here and did that, I tried to take that. So I had extra percent in it here, but it just didn't tag me in, which I was fine with anyway. So yeah, either or was fine. So EU to start off the week, fucking stupid. So you should at least, like realistically, you should at least be up 5% on EU just off of these two trades. One of them, they're both the exact same entry to a T. Okay. It's up to you whether you read and stay with the two confirmations. Completely up to you. I think it's proof enough to trade inducements rather than that. I can't handle sitting around and not being able to read shit. It pisses me off. Um, Coming into the next day. All right. So working off the back of a major inducement into mitigation. Very, very strong push up. Heaps of imbalance to fill here. And we're slowly getting that 15-minute structure. So remember what I said, I need one leg. I then need an inducement of some sort. So I had a two leg into a take here. I'm now happy to sell. I'm now happy to at least look to sell because I've had an inducement and two leg in my 15-minute range. There's an inducement at some point. Okay. This inducement is simply just, a two leg that takes internal liquidity and then pushes. But I've got some 15-minute structure with an inducement that isn't my top leg. And that is the key. Okay, so now I'm happy to look. Coming into the session, we haven't reacted out anything to the downside that makes sense, but it is very, very obvious we're in a complex pullback. So I took a loss here. Shouldn't have taken the fucking trade. It is not valid in my books, simply from a mathematical standpoint of we are bearish. It is slow. This more than likely won't run very far. I want my 1 to 3 as quickly as possible, and I want to be able to cover structure and not have a big stop loss. We then have coming into this, we create an area of supply that's mitigated, that's got some type of inducement into it. We have a 50% Asia range trade play out. Now, the entry model 50% of Asia range isn't an entry model, it's just a pattern that plays out. Okay, when you take 50% of Asia in the way of the momentum of the market, it seems to play out enough. Okay, so for me, medium inducement, break, retest, and push. Medium inducement into a mitigation in the middle of a complex pullback. It's going to build liquidity. So context is everything here. Major inducement area that tells me we're retracing. Medium inducement, take of Asia low, shit reaction. This should not be enough to take this high, especially given I've had confirmations to the downside. We've also got Frankfurt trap, Asia low trap, current internal structure cycle. Tick, 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 I'm trying to sell. Okay. In terms of the entry, we had inducement into mitigation. That's my external range. There's no internal break here or anything. I don't see anything in here. You can use that as an internal break if you like, but either way, you've got internal break, create, retest, and push. For me, we had demand to supply, really, really good supply area, break of structure. Now, remember what I said in terms of the two leg to the downside, one leg, two leg. This is a manipulation of some sort that could get buyers back in control. Okay, so as much as we've got everything that tells us it's coming to this low, we've now had a form of sellers manipulation that tells me sellers are now in the market. Okay, this Once you notice this two leg play out all over and over again, when it's against momentum, you can understand where the liquidity is building. We have a valid supply point and a valid supply area at the top. So we've got structure cycle, external take of liquidity into a possible inducement into the mitigation of this area for buyers to get back in control because you've got to play devil's advocate. Okay. The limit I set, and I know Dill took the same, is based off the confirmations of that. Okay. Reasons I won't set this again if you haven't watched the video. It's a 9 pip stop loss in the middle of a range, and the range itself is only 25 pips, 26 pips. So mathematically, it makes no sense to take a trade in the middle of a range when it can come higher. So I'm not even covering the external high with a 9 pip stop loss. I now need to travel nearly like 30 pips to get 1 to 3, and that's not including coming into my stop loss. So I need 30 pips in profit to just hit 1 to 3 in the middle of a complex pullback against market momentum. Makes no sense. Okay, so for me, mathematically, it's invalid. As much as the confirmations are valid in terms of break, retest, and push, the mathematical sense, um, it's just not in my favor. And I'm a mathematics fucking nerd. So that sets off my alarm. So I won't take a trade like that again. Is valid. You get pips. I think ideally the trade you set is you cover this imbalance and this supply, and you cover the high, and you have like an 11 pip stop loss. I don't think that hits 1 to 3 either. Okay, but that's the trade you take. That's worth the risk. You're now covering both the points. You're covering an inducement point because if we read current inducements, we've got inducement that then leads to a two leg inducement that now leads to this inducement. So I've got this inducement covered by an inducement, and now we've induced external point. So this, given liquidity versus liquidity, makes sense to do this. Okay, and that's just the standpoint of I've induced low and taken external liquidity. My next bit of liquidity, given the structure cycle, would be to take internal liquidity. Okay. The entry itself from the take of that point, which is, like I said, should have waited for, is push up inducement. So I've now got inducement versus inducement, and I'm coming away from my medium inducement. What do we have? Build up. So that's the third confirmation. Internal break. I set the limit. I don't need anything else. But you had break, pull down, pull up, push down. You had a second break. You can now set this. Okay. Gets tapped in, pushes down, break even. It's taken liquidity. We've now induced the other side of the market. We're now not protected by an inducement in this range, but you've had take of liquidity and push. This, because it didn't break external, is weaker. That's external because it pushed up and broke a high. This is not external because it didn't break a high. Okay, so it's not the liquidity that it once was. You can now set the limit again. So it is now valid to set the next limit, which is this. If we read internal structure, you've got pull down, mitigation, all of this is mitigated, pull down, pull up, internal take of liquidity, demand to supply. Because if we read structure, push, demand, supply that leads to a high. If you want to read internal price action, mitigation, mitigation, you can now set you can cover the high. I don't think you need to based on structure. If you cover the high, 10 pip stop loss. Cool. Expecting this to be a smart money trap. Inducement equal low take inducement. Second inducement. Break to the upside. Inducement. Smart money trap confirmed. You can now set internal break. Come into this point. It's pushed up and pushed down. Following structure. You would be tagged in. Break even. So there's so many entries in here. Okay. Depending on how much you want to read this structure is completely up to you. When I was in this trade, I watched all of this. So this is exactly what I marked out watching this price. When you're in a complex pullback coming away from a medium inducement and it's slow like this, and you can't get an entry, I think it's better off watching and taking an entry. We know where it's going. I think all of us could have guessed it was coming for this low. You've got to read price and try and get an entry, I believe. I think it's worth the risk. Um, we're literally just following simple price action. This was already confirmed as a smart money trap with this pull down. Demand to supply that created this. You then had push down, pull up, inducement level push. You could have set that. Protected supply, the mitigated supply that created and showed that this was a smart money trap. You can now set that. So there are so many entries to this. Um, I think it's worth, if you haven't, go back, have a look, um, and work out why you can't be confident in reading this because it would be a confidence thing. The reason it's hard to trade this price action is because the further it moves away from this point, the more you have to be able to read structure, which means you have to actually know what you're doing and you need the confidence to do it. The only way to get the confidence to do it is backtest your tits off or read price action like this and take a trade and don't have hindsight. Okay? Multiple entries here. And it just shows the patience behind not taking that first entry anyway. Okay, so multiple entries. Imagine some of them run 1 to 3. I don't know if it comes back up. Doesn't look like it does. No, don't get a break even. All it's doing is just trapping buyers in. So you hit 1 to 3 on this one. This one, you probably don't hit 1 to 3. And this one, my entry, you hit 1 to 3. So multiple ways of reading that. Like I said, that's the full-on way of reading that internal price action. But that is the entry there. Mind me just fucking deleting everything. Sweet. All right. Coming into New York. Um, I don't see anything here. I see absolutely nothing. I could not have predicted that this was going to push up. To me, we're still bearish, and I was looking to come down to demand. All it did is it took this internal point here, and then off of that, there wasn't an entry. So you had, if we read structure, inducement low here, break of structure, come into an area of supply. As you know, this is all filled. So the chance of a reacting out of here is very, very slim. Break that then leads to this two leg internal inducement, break of structure. So now we're working in between 2 points. Is this the demand or is this the demand? Okay, push up and break. If you were to then set this area, I don't know if it goes, I have no idea. We'll see. It's showing that this demand holds weight that leads to another break. We're not inducing everything over to the right. This should be a smart money trap. So this may take this low, risky entry, which is why I didn't take it. And it kind of goes from there. Catch a break even as it breaks, so you catch a break even anyway. I think in this range, there's just, given that there's so many points that this can react off, you've got a smart money trap, smart money trap, smart money traps. Like there's just so many it can react off of. And I didn't like this inducement. This could have made a new lower low. Okay. We've then reacted out of that extreme point here. We've then induced low. So we're now working in between these two inducements as we've taken recent demand. And she gone. Okay, so if we had got inducement, break, two leg, inducement into mitigation, you could have set that trend line. Okay, so that's something you could have set. In terms of selling this, we've obviously got, is this a break or is this not a break? We need to then see an inducement high that leads to a low that creates a point for us to trade off of. So we had nothing to work with here. That's obviously our supply. By the time we got there, news had taken it anyway. So that would have been your invalidation. There's just nothing to work with inside there. So these are things you should be doing and reading and watching as price goes. You just start as late as you can and kind of go from there. So no buyers there. Coming into the next day. All right, so coming into the next day, we mitigated this area here, obviously took all of that liquidity. We then had pull down, push up, pull down, so possible break. That just then kept melting. So not sure if this Asia low is going to hold enough to push up. It's obviously Asia low. I don't like reading from higher time frame points. I'm not going to sell until I get something that tells me we can sell. We had, like I said, break. Then didn't create an inducement supply and push, so I'm not interested. I just view this as retest. Nothing we can do there in London. New York, making our way inducement into this point here. Given that none of this holds any strength, it makes sense to buy from here. Does that make sense? So we haven't got an inducement supply in this leg other than the high. We've come to demand that's induced break and retest. So the only liquidity we've taken is here. Because none of this is a valid supply by any means in our books, I believe it's valid to buy. Okay. The
And
only,
just so, sorry, bro.
you're right.
Just so I understand that. So like you were talking about before, how that's kind of only done one leg
Yeah.
out of that supply. So we've got no real inducement point within that leg
Yeah.
until at least comes up to, about mid Asia there. There's a bit of
That, yeah, that
liquidity.
liquidity here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what we're looking for is a reason to sell us to get in control. So if we don't have a valid supply for us, it is a smart money trap. Okay.
Yeah.
Push up that does not lead to an inducement means that this is now a smart money trap point.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Demand area that leads to a break. So this is now a valid supply that broke through retest. So this is a valid supply.
Yeah.
Okay. Given current momentum, medium inducement into mitigation, it is highly likely that this is a smart money trap.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't know it yet. That's what we're trying to find out. So
So
does that
that
make
means
sense in
valid to buy from there in terms of the context with momentum
yes,
and that
110%.
demand. Yeah.
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 Because we've only
Until we
got
get to those higher,
high,
yeah, up there.
low, first point, low. This liquidity
Yeah.
taken should hold more than the first point. So if we're going to sell, we're expecting something like this or like
Yeah.
this.
Okay. Yeah. That makes
Okay.
sense.
Beautiful. Because we've only realistically created one leg, but we have got a supply in it. Because we have a valid supply in it, I'm okay to use this leg.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it gives us an inducement of a supply, a valid supply, to then break lower.
Yeah. So until then, you can look for buys.
Yeah, 110%. So jump down and have a look because this is the news night. So GU, I took a trade and that's why. And as you can see, this is just a joke. Just no fucking entry. Okay. So I took GU at the same time, which I'll walk through. And he kind of just went. So once it induces here, you can now look for sells. All we're looking for is an inducement of some sort that tells us that it's bringing in more buyers. We pulled down. We then didn't create a two leg, which means we haven't brought enough sellers in. So we can't even use this as a valid demand for us. It's just pushed up. It then did its two leg into that area of demand that pushed through this high. Because, like I said, that's a valid smart money trap and then pushed up. So it completed the structural cycle perfectly here, just nothing for us to trade. Okay, if we had got push low, internal break into this area here, I would have been happy to take that, targeting this, because I know that this point should not hold and we reacted out of it. Does that make sense how that context holds so much weight? So it's no, so the points I've marked out, I've got, obviously, this has just been disrespected, which we expected. It's then reacted out of this point and given a smart money trap reaction, just did not one that we can validate and push through it. So based off of my 15-minute analysis, it's done everything I wanted it to do. Okay, there's just no entry, unfortunately. So that's why I use G, and I'll walk through G, obviously. I'll have to use the divergence because I won't break even because of the divergence. So before I look at GU, basically, as we broke this high, I went break even on GU. As we then broke this high, I went break even on GU. And then as we broke this high, I went break even on GU. And that's literally what I did over and over again. And it just kept being a dick. Okay. And then EU when it took the high. So now what we've got is medium inducement low, medium inducement high. Yes, it's an Asian session high, so we don't want to trade off of it. And then that's where we get that reaction. Okay. Cool. Alrighty. So we've pushed ourselves directly into demand. So this is where um, I think it's valid to sell. Okay. Yes, it is the Asian high take, so it is a bit shitty. But because we haven't induced enough sellers, because we haven't got a supply, it is more than likely going to sell. So if it comes up this high, because there's been no inducement of sellers in here, in terms of we haven't got a valid supply for us at all, if it comes up here, it's gone. So if it pushes up in here, it's just going to push through. So that's where buys were valid. What it actually does instead is it gives a valid supply for us, giving it an inducement that doesn't break anything. What it does, though, is gives us a medium inducement. But it's the Asia highs. This is where the context of medium inducement mitigation comes in. We should have been targeting this low. Okay. Now, the entry is very, very hard. And I did call it live. I didn't take it, like I said, because of it's being Asian high, so I'm not too butthurt about it. But the entry is inducement. That's my inducement supply. We then had push up into this point, which should not hold. What tells us it shouldn't hold? By giving us a two leg. Sweet. So we've now got confirmed possible seller's trap, buyer's trap straight away. What it then does is creates a larger two leg for an inducement that gives us structure. We then get our first two leg to the downside, mitigation, push. This is the opposite way. Smart money trap, one leg, two leg, internal break of structure, inducement, inducement, limit set, gone. It is the same the other way. The only thing that makes this hard to fucking read is the Asian session. That is it. If that was not the Asian session, that was a medium inducement for us, this makes so much sense. So much harder to read upside down, I get that, but that is the valid trade. Okay? Reason it's valid is because this has now been confirmed as a smart money trap, we have a break-even protocol range, which is the low of that point. Okay, so this is where it was probably worth the risk. You can hit 1 to 3 before it even takes that point. So if you just set it off the point, it's literally 1 to 3 at the low. Okay, difficult to read, given liquidity, being up for the week with what EU's provided, worth the risk. Okay.
It's good for understanding manipulation though. Like
Yes.
just with like two legs within two legs and then the two leg the opposite way. It's
Yes. It's
once the sort of that all becomes clear and like easily visible as
mm-hmm.
a read price, it's like, okay, cool. Like
Yeah,
things
it's like how the fuck did we not see
making more
that?
sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the bit that gets everyone out is just the word order flow. You see order
Yeah.
flow building at the top. It does not fucking mean anything because this is being treated as a medium inducement. Okay. The reason I didn't
Yeah.
have it at a medium inducement is because of it being Asian highs. But it was a supply. It just didn't break anything. So there's so much hindsight to this. The only reason I'm going to accept my hindsight is because I called this live and said that it's worth the risk. That
Yeah.
is the only reason I'm going to do it. Like I said, didn't fucking take it. This buy to me is so fucking A plus. It is stupid. Okay. Asia high take. We target Asia high take. 50% of Asia take of demand, take of liquidity, which then activates the trend line to the top. You've got break, retest, push, take of retest, first inducement, second inducement, mitigation, push, trend line. So this is the same model that plays out 99.9% of the time. The reason it didn't is because the market decided to go bearish from here. It is the first time we've been bearish in like 3 weeks. So all it's done is this entry model didn't play out because we've decided to go bearish for the first time in 3 weeks. So that is a problem. Reading this is a hard trade, like I said, to take. But once you can read inducements, you're good to go. Inducement low, push up, very, very small two leg, very obvious manipulation into the mitigation of this 1 minute point, break of structure. All I'm setting off of is the retest of the area and push. It hasn't come into my area of mitigation yet, so that's fine. Now, this should have been treated as a smart money trap. I'm very surprised it didn't. Only reason it didn't is you've got demand area that created a two leg, mitigation of demand area, push up, inducement higher. This is my area of supply, pull down, mitigation, push. So it is the opposite of this way. So as much as this should be a smart money trap, it is a valid supply area because it's created the manipulation. So, and the only reason this didn't go is because that was a medium inducement. That is the only fucking reason. Is it's trading against a medium inducement. That is literally it. Okay? Because now if you read the higher time frame, medium inducement, there's no way this holds. Fortunately, it is a medium inducement because of that fucking take a liquidity there. Okay? Very annoying, very frustrating. It's just one
Was
of
that
those.
Asia high take in terms of keeping most like everybody out of that sell because it's coming out of that demand? Um, can you sort of view that as this is likely to be a smart money trap? So the next piece of structure to break in order to induce in buyers for that trap would be is actually just happens to be Asia high,
Yes.
which adds a little bit more like validity to selling from that high.
Yes. So this is where in trading you have to just stick to your plan, even though you know it's not going to work.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
if I look at this objectively, I've got Asia high take from an inducement demand in an inducement demand. I've then got no inducement up the top. I've then got Frankfurt trap, Asia high trap. Like this, in every sense of the word, is every fucking other strategy. You have support and resistance
yeah,
area
yeah,
here. Like you have trend line where people are trading off. Like this is just one of those times
yeah,
that they all win.
yeah,
But you've got to take it. The good thing about how we trade is you can get break even. Okay, so I was able to get break even in this. It exploded up. I didn't need to go break even yet because it hasn't trapped in enough buyers yet. You get the pull down, which creates the retest that is valid for everyone to set. So if you would set this, I think it's completely valid. If you had gone off the two confirmation idea and inducement idea, I think it's valid. Because this inducement high into this area is fucking shit. It's just one of those things. This is where you either take a break even or a loss, and it is a valid break even or a valid loss. This is a data driven valid loss. Okay. And then it kind of just melts off here. So this was A plus to me, like I said. In future, and this is where it's hard, and I don't expect anybody to actually do this. I'm trying to give it a go, is hedge. It is
yeah,
hard to hedge and take this simply because if you take this loss, it now ruins your session. Especially if you focus too hard on the sell and miss the buy, and this does this, you fucked yourself.
yeah.
Okay, so just one of those things, man. Um, Elementary, just no follow through. Okay. Let me delete all my drawings. And a lot of that has to do with the higher time frame context in terms of medium inducement into mitigation, and it kind of just melted through that. But we haven't got any valid points here. That's to me, we took a very, very small demand to supply that broke through nothing as well. So it's not like we've broken through anything with this, just time to reverse. Okay. But, this played out here, it played out here, it played out here, it played out here. So, I mean, if you take all five and then the last one's a loss, you really give a fuck anyway? Probably not. So, one of those things. And now this is such an A plus entry, and I didn't get in because I wasn't aggressive enough. You have to take this on the 32nd or you just have to have the limit ready, and I wasn't. Um, Medium inducement, nothing for us to work with. The next valid demand to supply is this area here. You've got break with a retest, so you're expecting none of this area to hold. So that is a smart money trap. That is my next valid supply. Like I said, this is very hard to read. External break of liquidity. What broke through this? You've got demand, demand. You can also read it as internal break, retest, and push. This retest, you've got inducement, no inducement, push. So I've got inducement, fighting inducement. Okay. Price makes its way down. There's your two leg. Same shit again. Inducement, inducement, inducement low, two leg. If it breaks through this internal break, we know that this is a seller's trap. Breakthrough, retest of area and push. You've also got that this area will be treated as a smart money trap. The 30-second entry, which I tried to get in, I just was not quick enough. React off of this, one leg, two leg into that area of mitigation, which is a demand. Break. That's the entry. You can even set it like that, which is the entry that Alex took. Okay, so given that you should be up 20% on EU, you take this. Like medium inducement, possible inducement high, inducement low, possible smart money trap. Should break through this high, you can at least go break even. If not, you can take the next entry. You've got a break even point. You've got a smart money trap. You've got an area you're targeting, which is this one here. You take it every day. Okay. If I had got in this entry, I would have had to jump out anyway. I don't actually know if it goes 1 to 3. It doesn't. The market close, I would have jumped out. Personal account, I would have stayed in. All my fundeds, I would have been out. But to me, this is very, very A plus. Even if you target the supply for a 1 to 2. Um, just medium inducement. All you're looking for is sellers to lose control, which they did. Beautiful. So basically, this week, 1 to 2, 1 to 3 here, so 2%, break even, nothing in here, nothing in here, 1 to 3. So you're looking at 5 or 6% with a break even or a loss. So let's say 5%, 1 to 3, 8%. This trade, you've got 1 to 3, which is 11%, or you can take it to the high, which puts you up another 4 or 5% because you would take partials. So you're looking at anywhere from 10% plus on EU alone with the same entry model, and they're all buys. And that's why EU was fun this week. Okay, so this entry model is just playing out like clockwork, and it's all just reading inducements. Okay, so it's up to you if you guys would rather start going from the two confirmation based approach. Like I said, I've moved it like that's the introductory. I've never necessarily thought of it like that. Just explaining it like that is quite easy. I'm working with the inducement. What's the inducement leading to? Understanding that you get inducement, inducement, retest, and go. And that works both ways. Okay. That's just how it works. Sweet. All right. Let's do fucking GU. Any questions on that or all Gucci?
Pretty good, but yeah, no, definitely looking to try and move more towards the
Hmm.
actually just being able to read who's in control rather than
Have you
the
did you
more,
watch the backtesting video after you did the backtesting?
yeah,
Yeah. So that is just that on steroids.
yeah,
So everyone was able to get losses during that.
yeah,
I nearly took every one of the trades and didn't cop a loss. And that's the power of this is you don't take full losses.
yeah, because your break evens are so much closer, and you because you've got
Yes.
like going from inducement to inducement.
Yes. But what you've got to learn is when you do it, you've got to accept that cool, it's a break even, it's a break even. And just accept it.
Yeah,
The moment you hold on to any emotion with it, you get cooked.
yeah.
Okay.
But this
No,
sort of
but
allows you like kind of for re-entries and things like that when
yes. Yeah, which I'll show you on GU
as
now
you
because I took three. So
yeah,
it's
yeah, sweet.
when you got a jet. No, no, too easy, Quinny. Catch your brother. All right, so yeah, EU very, very successful week. If read correctly. Um, Cool. All right. So GU coming in on Monday. Obviously, we've induced low from this area. So this point has now done what it's need to. We've pushed low into an area of demand to supply. So very, very clean. Push up. This is just a straight range. So yes, we did have this take of liquidity in point here, but we didn't take 15-minute structure. Remember what I said, in order to have a bearish range, I need to take 15-minute structure. So what I'm looking for is take this high, low. Then I've got a 15-minute range I can now work bearish in. Until I get that, I'm reading this as one leg, nothing. Okay, I need the 15-minute take. Okay, coming into the session, we've got demand to supply that help break this low. This should not outweigh this inducement and this mitigation. Um, Straight range. This didn't hold because it didn't break the low. Um, that's probably all you need from that. I don't even know if there's an entry here. I have no idea. Probably knowing my luck that I missed. Um, Coming into the session, we've obviously got this two leg here. So we've got area of demand. There's going to be an entry. Oh, no, I don't think there is. So same shit again. Break, retest, push, pull back down, take of retest, inducement number one, build up of liquidity, push, no second inducement. Instead, it leads to a break. We've got an inducement point. All we're looking for is a reason to trade from here. Pull down, two leg, that then leads to an internal break of structure. You can now set this limit. Does that make sense, Matt?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Hmm. Sweet. All right. In this, you'd be targeting the external high and you'd cop a break even. Okay. Valid as hell. This entry I will show you on Tuesday. I believe I actually take this as a buy, I think.
And
Um,
the reason you can put your stop there is because of that second inducement, which is just a two leg. It's not like
Mhm.
inducing something low.
Yep.
So that's your protected inducement.
Yes. So the two leg itself
Yeah,
is an inducement. So I'm not looking for
yeah,
this to be an inducement because it takes liquidity. I'm looking for it to be an inducement because it generated liquidity.
yes. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah,
when you get these type of breaks, you'll understand that the more aggressive, obviously, is the more risk. Okay. Ideally, what you want to see is a retest and a break, and then you can set that. That's ideally what you want to see. It just doesn't happen very often. It normally happens in a point. If it's outside a point, this is just solely external range. Until I take something that matters, it cannot push any lower than this. It just can't. It's not going to
yeah.
just generate inducements just cause. Like it's just not going to. It needs to take something or mitigate something of irrelevance. Mitigation comes back here. Okay.
Cool.
Um, we'll obviously play this through until the next session. Cool. Let's actually read through this anyway. So you've got inducement low, funnily enough. Break, retest, push up, inducement low leads to an internal break. Nothing we can do with that. One leg, two leg, inducement into demand. So you've now got, and this is how you've got to read it, inducement demand into a demand, inducement demand into a demand. Break, that's my break even. valid. You get tagged in and it goes.
And you've also got like an SMT sort of inducing
Yes.
with a two leg inducement as well, and then the two leg into the demand.
Yep. And you've
Yeah,
got good up again
which
following that.
is which you get the build up from. Yeah,
Yeah.
sweet.
Rinse and repeat. So valid trade, valid trade, valid trade, valid. You can take fucking any of them. Um, runs and smashes the high. So like that. Beautiful. So either or is valid. Break even or this one. This one's out of timing, so I won't count it. But like I said, very, very valid. Cool. You've then got the take of the high here. So this is where this is, yep. So this is where this buy is valid. So you're now in the top of this point. Yes, you have medium induced into this mitigation. So this is where the problem came in, and I was happy to sell because we have had a medium inducement into this mitigation. Yes, this didn't break the low, but EU's did. So given that EU's did, I was okay to take a sell. Given the structure cycle on GU, I should have just kept buying and aim to take that. Okay, very, very like just a silly mistake, but it's worth the risk in my eyes. Obviously, took the loss on EU, but this is the entry on GU, and a lot of this can be indicated by the complex pullback. Okay, cool. So you had break, retest, push, supply area to demand that breaks high, has internal structure. Okay, what you've also got is break, retest, push, inducement one, push, two leg, inducement two, internal break, set limit. Pretty straightforward again. Whether you said that or that, either or. Um, Same entry model again, break even at the high, targeting 1 to 3, and it smokes it. Cool. So same shit again. Um, Break, retest, push, didn't break high, pull down, first inducement, break, second inducement, push. So you've either got break, break, set limit, break, two leg, break, set limit, however the fuck you want to approach this. Um, Obviously, you've got this first inducement that just breaks. This does then not lead to anything. Like it then induces low again. So you've got first inducement, you don't have your second one. That's where internal breaks I think is stupid to read. Instead, I've got push, inducement low, which is actually a two leg in itself, which probably shows that this entire point is a smart money trap. Inducement low, push, two leg, inducement low, break, retest, catch you later. Thanks for coming. Momentum, two inducements. You've then got the break and retest entry model from a demand, which is fucking so clean. So you've got break and retest entry model. So you've got a full entry model playing out, which provides a New York continuation with external target liquidity, which is a weak supply, which is a smart money trap. You've then got your two inducements. You've got two confirmations. Yeah, take your fucking pick. Okay. That one should have been taken. Very, very easy entry. I did try and get into it, but I'd already taken the loss and I couldn't. I just wasn't good enough. So I get to watch that one go. Now you can obviously target points, target liquidity, but because it's external liquidity on a continuation, continuations don't have a medium inducement. Target 1 to 3, do not hold longer. There's just no fucking point. Continuations 1 to 3, when you get a medium inducement, then go for longer targets. Okay? Save you heaps of fucking hassle. Alrighty. So jump on the 15 minute. Okay, so external inducements into this mitigation. We now don't have 15-minute structure to work with. You've got one leg, retest, push, take a 15-minute liquidity into the push low. So I'm now happy to look to sell until it takes liquidity. Okay, what do we get? Absolutely fuck all. It then takes liquidity, medium inducement into a mitigation. I took a loss here because of mismanagement. Inducement, push up, nothing to work with. Two leg to the downside, internal break, limit set. So that was my second inducement. What then happened is it fucked around, obviously, because it can do that. It's still valid. I then took external liquidity into a supply, I should have gone break even. That is literally it. Okay, so I took my external liquidity and didn't go break even in a supply that broke through a 15-minute low. So this supply had the fuck around. It also had this two leg, so it induced and mitigated into a supply. This is responsible. This is a decisional of this break. Okay, so this is where I told you, Matt, that you've just got to apply and just fucking get out. Because then what happened is you have clear inducement. Beautiful. Inducement one. No entry. Induced high. So we don't know if this is a break. We don't know if it's what. Medium inducement. We're expecting all of this to be fucking liquidity anyway. The next point, the responsible for this low take, that did not. So that itself is the next supply. It's not a 15-minute supply. The next 15-minute supply realistically is kind of this area. So we're expecting to target that. Medium inducement, medium inducement. Okay. But let's just look at the facts. Okay. I then took this half risk because I took the loss. So push up, two leg, push up, two leg, internal break, limit set. It's just showed me that this is a smart money trap. Okay, so that's my break even. You've also got one sit, and like I said, you've then got break, retest, and push. You can set it again. So this is I took the aggressive entry. The safe entry is to wait for the retest and push. Okay, which would be that. Daily cycle, Asian highs. I just targeted a 1 to 3. Fucks around. Two leg to the downside, funnily enough. Push through the high. Make sense? So yes, riskier entry. The second entry that's up higher, I will half risk. That's just in my risk profile. That's what I'll do. I'm not going to leave profits on the table because I think it's too risky when I know it's going. So I'll half
Yeah,
it.
it's like in my head, I'd be going, oh, I've missed a trade, like I've missed it, so I don't
Mhm.
want to chase price by taking an entry like higher up in the range. But
Yep.
once now I'm understanding like inducements and like with the two leg, so you got inducement one, and then the two leg just before your entry is inducement two,
Yep.
so you can provided you understand what you're doing, you can
Yep. So think of
you can
it,
trade
you've
higher up
got
like that.
medium inducement. We know how break and retest works. So you have external break or external break. We then retested. We then manipulated the retest. That's how you've got to think of it. So the retest has now been manipulated already. That makes sense. The
Cool.
two leg is the
Yeah.
manipulation of retest already created.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's really weird to understand, but once you kind of like, I can't talk you through it in terms of how it builds liquidity, but it happens. Okay. So it's induced sellers at the break of retest of our break, which now builds a valid demand. And the simple way to kind of understand that is the retest is actually a mitigation because it's mitigating a high point. So it's now creating a demand through building liquidity inside of a mitigation of a high time frame point.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Slowly starting to click together. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
beautiful. So that for me is retest, retest taken, demand filled, demand inducement of retest inside demand. Because
Yeah.
what we're looking for is the structure cycle and liquidity cycle to play out. And what that is inducement demands and inducement supplies inside of inducement demands and inducement supplies. So I know that this area is a demand area. I've then had an inducement of possible retest inside a demand. So I've now got my second inducement, which gives me a valid demand inside my demand. I haven't taken opposing liquidity yet. I've just built it. I can now set a limit.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
No, that
Difficult
makes
as
sense.
fuck to understand, but this is
Lots
the
of lots. Yeah, I'll need to say it a few times, but like,
once
yeah.
you can notice
No, it's starting
momentum,
to
you can read
every
this.
time something new clicks in. So yeah,
Yeah, beautiful. So now the problem is you've got heaps, and every session has been a trade, even if it's fucking an hour later. So there's every session has been a trade. So this is where you've got to be disciplined and knowing if you're up or down for the week and what a valid high quality entry is. Because now you understand why I overtrade. Because I could trade every fucking session we've walked through at the moment. Like every
yeah,
single one, there's an entry. So That's where you've got to kind of put those things in. When you get a medium inducement, I don't view this as chasing because I'm off the back. I've got momentum, high time frame liquidity, high time frame structure cycle, and I'm trading from a take of that, which has just generated so much liquidity. Josh, would you mind restarting? Yeah, man. Let me just walk through fucking all the entries I've walked through. You fucking dick.
Let me explain it, Josh.
So yeah, valid entry. Obviously, take it. You've then got things like added bonuses like liquidity cycle, daily cycle, shit like that. So very, very valid in terms of that. Um, like I said, we've taken 15-minute structure here. So 15-minute structure, 15-minute structure, that's your target anyway, because that's your next medium inducement inside the range. Okay. Now, given that we're expecting this to either make a lower low or build liquidity to push a higher, these are the two options. Okay. So these are the two things we're looking at. So we're looking for proof of which ones happens first coming into this session because you've got to read both sides. EU was medium inducing at the time. This is that EU trade that took the Asia low, which was the medium inducement that I used it as medium inducement, which kind of gave a little bit of a hint into GU. Okay. So people wouldn't have this as a demand, so they wouldn't know that this is an inducement point. So now overreading has now caused you to actually read this perfectly and understanding that you don't want to trade from here because you've just taken an external inducement. So if I was marking this out, you would have that and that. So now I've marked that out, you know that it's hunting this. Okay, so my overread has now enabled me to read this correctly. Okay, rack from demand, not interested, nothing interested, nothing we can do, still nothing we can do. I think Josh got caught up in here. Now I've explained that this is a valid demand because of that manipulation. You don't trade from here. Cool. Inducement. We are fucking on. So if this is going to sell, what you're going to get is an internal break, a build up of liquidity, an inducement low, a take of liquidity to then sell. So we are now at the point where we either have a seller's model or we have an inducement low to push higher with momentum with current structure cycle. At the exact same time, EU was only buying. There was no way fucking EU was selling. So given those, you can kind of use that divergence to be aggressive on this. Okay. Now, Dylan had this as a valid entry. I actually didn't like the manipulation on it. So that was the entry. Okay. I didn't, if this had taken this low, I would have taken it. I didn't actually have this as a valid inducement. Now, it did two leg into this demand that broke internally here. I get that. For me, it just wasn't, I wasn't okay to be aggressive. Now, I was in EU, so I already was up a fucking whole lot because EU was already running, but that wasn't enough for me to do it. Now, you get break, it retests immediately. It doesn't take this because that's your invalidation and it pushes. Okay, so valid entry, 110%. I just didn't like this manipulation enough. I had, as I was reading it, inducement. I didn't have a second inducement. When technically, like this is a valid inducement or this is a valid inducement. Just for me, I wanted something a little bit more like that, which gives me, an obvious inducement. Okay. But the manipulation's worth it. Like Dylan said when we spoke about it, valid for him 100%. Targeting the external high, which is a 1 to 3 exactly. And see you later. Okay. Once again, same fucking entry model again. Push to the highs. Okay. Coming into this session, break. This is an area of retest. That's the last point that obviously took liquidity. So it's going to be a smart money trap. That's a medium inducement externally. But we just use this for confluence on EU. We're too high in the range. We have no 15-minute sellers range. Not interested. Now, this is where manipulation reads are important. So break. pull down into break, internal break with a build up. So we now have a buyer's entry model on the 15-minute. Okay. So all they're looking for is pull down, medium inducement, mitigation, push out, inducement, push to the high, trend line build up. Okay. That is the entry model we're looking for right here. Okay. Does that make sense in terms of this inducement now gave this a lot of weight as a break and retest? Beautiful. Yep. Josh, yeah, you were
Yeah, yeah,
great read. So great read. So unfortunately, fuck all. Absolutely nothing. Um, I didn't have this as an internal break. I don't. I'm very strict on my internal breaks now. You could have had internal break, retest, and push. Just for me, I won't. I won't stretch it. Um, you had that set, yep, which is completely fine. Context is important here. Perfectly valid to set. I mean that inducement low with the quick push up should have had you pushing that stop loss a little bit higher, but it's just that to me is dodgy confirmation. So I won't enter without valid confirmations. I can stretch the liquidity takes, but I won't stretch the confirmations for entry. I need them pretty exact. If you're going to take this, you should have taken the GU from the night before. Okay. That's where the consistency of how you treat confirmations needs to go. Yeah, you want to tighten this up for sure. Once you watch through the EU, dude, you'll realize there was just so many entries. You don't need to be aggressive for no reason. You can be quite calm with it. This week was a big week. Push up, major inducement. We don't trade major inducements. Nothing for me in here. You've got break, retest, which mitigates, push, break, retest, which created a two leg. So this is a valid demand. Um, Medium inducement. I won't sell here. Okay. The only way I'm going to sell is if I get a push up, build trend line, and I've got enough room to at least make it worth it. You will not catch me selling at the bottom of a 15-minute leg. It's just not going to happen. Okay. So what I was looking for was take of liquidity to either push up to sell or to use this as a point to buy through, targeting that. Okay. They're the two options. Absolutely nothing either way. News, um, all day anyway. Major inducement, more likely going to destroy this. Now, I took buys here. So, what we had happen, and I'll walk through every entry. Okay. Demand to supply, invalidation, mitigation that broke the high, valid to look, I think 110,000%. Um, this is where I took my three entries. Giddy up. So, major inducement into mitigation. Structure cycle is fine. Really, really far away from the major inducement. Push up, minor inducement into the session. Okay. This is where divergence played a big part in the first entry. I've got inducement, which then created a two leg into an inducement. At the same time, EU broke a low. Okay. So this showed me this was a valid demand inside my valid demand. Hard to read because there's no fucking break. My next break of structure is this high. So if you don't read the first entry, you can't read any other entry. Okay, which is completely fine. Very, very full on read here, but I had break. That's where I set my limit. As price pushed me in and pushed up, I went break even. This took external liquidity on EU. So I had to go break even. Okay. Now, the reason I'm still happy to look at GU is because there has been no invalidation hit on GU. Every invalidation is a divergence invalidation. If GU is still reading correctly, it'll just keep building up liquidity. Okay. I haven't hit it. I haven't hit an invalidation on GU, so I can't actually flip to look for sales yet, which means I'm going to continue to look for buys. This should not hold as much as this mitigation. What I then had happen is two leg with a take of liquidity into that demand, broke internal, set limit again. So set limit again, break even at the high. News came out. I set my at break even. Is what it is. Took me out with news. Fucking dog. It then did another two leg. It then pushed up and broke an internal 15-second point, which showed that this was a smart money trap, that this was a smart money trap. I then entered here, covering my new low. Inducement, inducement. Happy, happy as Larry again. Break even at the highs. Same entry model playing out over and over again. What the fuck? My chart just shat itself and deleted all my drawings off of it. That's killer. What the fuck? Is that fucking normal? What the fuck? Either my internet just shut itself and it's enter the exit replay. Nice. So, off of that, break even at the high, valid demand to supply, obviously two leg, take of liquidity, mitigation to the previous point. If it's going, the structure cycle is going to play out, and we're going to sell. I've got trend line to the downside, I'm break even. It ran 1 to 2.19. First entry ran 1 to 2. Second entry ran 1 to 3. Motherfucking news. And then this entry 1 to 2. So this was a complete break even for me. Spot on break even. I think all are valid. If we're going, I had all of my take profits at the Asian highs at the extreme high. Every single one. Because it was either returning from this supply or it was pushing through. There's no manipulation up here enough to tell me that price would then melt. And I'm not going to use Asian highs as a manipulation point. I'm going to target it. So no profits is what it is. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. But that's where the power of trading inducements comes in. And then obviously price melted off. Um, coming into the next day. This point here being such a small point, probably not going to hold, but valid medium inducement. At the same time, EU took that internal structure. We then had demand to supply area, so we had targets. I think this is the one everyone took. Very, very valid entry. Okay. Medium inducement. There's your inducement low. Push up, inducement low, break. Realistically, everyone should have had that set. Okay. Like that should have been the entry. And then you would have hit 1 to 3. Okay. The reason no one pulled profits is because everyone was a scared little bitch and covered the lows. Simple as that. Everyone should have been aggressive. Understand that that's the last inducement. We haven't got to the imbalance yet. We're still sitting in the middle of an imbalance. Your break even is this here. Okay. If it's going to set up again, you have enough room in this range to look at another entry. Okay. So everyone should have just had that. Realistically, I think 1 to 3, 50% off, and then targeting the Asian highs actually makes sense on this trade. 1 to 3 and 1 to 8. Okay. But everyone decided to do that, which there's nothing wrong with. You're just covering your ass a little bit. Once you take this external high, the good thing about covering the low is once you come into this point, if it is a smart money trap, you have an inducement covering you to hold through. Okay. But given we're so low in this range, I wouldn't want it to come back. I would actually set another limit and go again. And this is just where comes the risk to reward side of things. And that's why I took EU instead of GU. It's simply just I could be a lot quicker on EU, get break even quicker, and if it runs, it'll run to a higher risk to reward. Okay. Obviously, take of external liquidity means we go break even. That was enough to dump the market from there. Okay. Once I'm this bearish, I don't look left at all. I'm not fucking interested. I will only look left once I have an entry, like two 15-minute breaks. Okay. So what we've got is we've got push up that has done a two leg to the downside. That has now led to an internal break, or going to lead to an internal break. I would now look what I've reacted off of. I've reacted off of an area of demand. Okay, so this is just our entry model playing out on a lower, on a higher time frame. Inducement point, push up, two leg to the downside, inducement into inducement demand, pushing to this point, internal break, limit set. I'd be very surprised if that doesn't go. It's the exact same entry model on the 15-minute as what our 1 minute plays out. Your break even is this high. Okay, so I'm going to leave that on my chart. We'll see what happens. Sweet. Any questions at all with any of that? Juicy.